Where was your passion and where was your concern when they all said that there was no connection to Russia? Crickets from you guys. Hold on. Let me, and I'm trying to answer your question, Jonathan, if you can calm down.
Yeah, it was the craziest thing I've seen at the White House since the president's press conference a few weeks back.
The White House unveiling its $1.1 trillion budget.
It is the most conservative budget that I've ever seen.
This budget is really a slap in the face.
Kicked out of bounds, Northwestern! Yada, yada, yada. Northwestern has its first ever NCAA tournament victory.
I'm going to call on the New York Times because they're in trouble. They printed this morning that I'm the father of 17-year-old triplet girls. My two 17-year-old sons are really upset. So if you could...
We gather here today to take part in the traditional Shamrock ceremony. We need that great Irish confidence. And they are confident people, aren't they, my parents?
It was a year ago, and it was 55 degrees, and it was a lot better idea to wear a skirt.
That's right.
This year, it's not as great an idea to wear a skirt.
So if you're going to wear a skirt and you're a man, then pull the socks up a little bit higher.
That's right.
Okay, good.
Yeah, just an inch of your skin will show.
You were just looking live outside our world headquarters. We set up a pub as we did last year, and there you've got the New York Metro Pipe Band. The pub on the plaza, by the way, thanks to Party City as well, because today is the 17th day of March, when everybody in New York City is Irish. So as you get up today, wear something warm and wear something green.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you and to your family. It's always a fun and festive day, and occasionally it falls on a Friday, so it's a little bit more fun.
Yeah, it is, and I would like to add this, too. It was very good to see President Trump with the leaders of Northern Ireland and, I guess, would you call it mainland Ireland or regular Ireland? And, you know, yesterday, of course, tradition would have it at the White House, and there was a lot of festivities going on. That was St. Patrick's Day Eve, but today's the real St. Patrick's Day. So we'll be celebrating throughout. But it doesn't mean, what did you just do?
I just moved the leprechaun. I didn't realize there was a leprechaun behind me.
Sitting between us.
Remember a couple of years ago when we actually had a leprechaun on the show with George Napolitano sat on his lap?
Right. I don't think that video's available anymore.
I don't remember that, and I'd love to see it.
It was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
Right.
I can hear him laughing now.
Why? Because the judge is Italian?
It was a crazy thing.
There it is. What happened?
When we write the book, you'll know.
You're acting as if leprechauns are real.
We hired this leprechaun off of Craigslist.
There's your first mistake.
And you know what? You get exactly what you pay for.
That's
Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about what's going on down in Washington, D.C. You know, on somebody's wall at the White House, they've got a big sign and things they should do. It's a thing, essentially a bucket list. One of the things they promised during the campaign was President Trump would bring the budget back into the zone of reality. And yesterday, with his skinny budget, a blueprint of $1.1 trillion, he cuts a bunch of programs that simply don't work, and he's putting more money in things that are important to the country.
Well, you know, this is your money. You get up every morning, you try to, get out the door, get your kids on the bus, and you want your hard-earned dollars to be spent wisely. We have a major deficit in this country, and we have to cut somewhere, and unfortunately, some of these agencies are going to have to feel the pinch.
So we had the Director of Office of Management and Budget here explaining yesterday what was going to be in the budget. This is a wish list. This is a framework. This is the skinny list. The winners of the Defense Department, they're up 10%. Overall, it's only up 3% from what President Obama pledged after he gradually just cut back to defense to the point we've never been this
So that's
weak.
one of the winners, defense?
Yep.
Homeland Security?
Is also a winner, and they get $1.5 billion to build that wall, including 5.9% for the Veterans Administration to rebuild. I never thought money was the issue with the vets. It was the organization. But when it comes to school choice, Betsy DeVos is going to get a budget to do it.
Well, I tell you what, in, I think, 2010 to 2014, the Obama administration knocked $100 billion off the defense budget. So this 10% raise, you can see how we're still in the hole. That could be why John McCain says it needs to be more. Meanwhile, some of the losers, agency-wise, Health and Human Services, the FAA, Research and Grants, the EPA, which, you know, the administration feels is out of control, preoccupied with a biased view of climate change that's costing jobs and whatnot, and the list goes on, including PBS and NPR.
Which
and
is
the
why all these actors are upset about it.
Yeah, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And
right.
which, you know, back in the day when there were limited options for, you know, if you lived out in the rural area, which I used to, and a lot of people relied on the public radio station. There's so many choices these days. I mean, you got so much stuff on your phone, and do we really need to be spending millions and millions and millions of dollars?
Jamie Lee Curtis, a lot of these actors are really upset taking money away from the arts, but the president is saying we got to cut somewhere, and this is your money, it's your tax dollars.
Do you think the president would have cut back the National Endowment of Arts if he knew Jamie Lee Curtis would be upset?
Probably not.
Do you think in retrospect he'd like that back?
Look. America got exactly what they voted for. If you were a supporter of Donald Trump and you wanted him to cut things, he's cutting them. Rush Limbaugh sees the same thing.
It is a fabulous budget. It is a budget that every one of you who voted for Trump expected him to deliver. And Trump will be able to say he kept his promise. Now, the odds of Trump's budget being passed, well, take a look at the success they're having with Obamacare, repeal and replace, and you get an idea what this is going to be. Because once again, Trump is up against establishment types who want big government, who want all these agencies, who want the power that accompanies being able to dole out this money.
A lot of Republicans don't like the framework of the budget. Keep in mind, it's very traditional to submit a budget and have it knocked around by both parties. But, you know, you have Senator Portman says, oh, I got to clear up the Great Lakes. He was former OMB director. You have others say, well, you know, we can't touch this, we can't touch that. And a lot of people are upset the State Department's getting a 31% cut. But guess who's not? The Secretary of State. He says, listen, it's too fat. We got to be able to cut this back. And guess who else is not upset for the cutback? Former Governor Nikki Haley. She's like, listen, we got to cut back on the UN. They're taking advantage of a lot of their programs.
The same thing. He said, I trust the president. Listen, I'm running the State Department. We're getting cuts, too. But he says, I trust the president. We're going to make it work, and it's a challenge that I'm up for.
What's troubling, though, is the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, and Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate. They're both lukewarm on it. You would think that if there was a lot of cutting to be done in agencies that historically Republicans have not been crazy about, they'd jump at the opportunity to cut them. But nonetheless, Marco Rubio said this is not going to be the budget, and John McCain says it's not going to be passed. So some Republicans lukewarm, but I'll tell you what, the coastal left is up in arms.
Yeah, that's the first phase, at least. We talked about 3 phases of Obamacare. This is the beginning of the budget discussion. So we talked about Jamie Lee Curtis and some of these actors being upset. This is what she tweeted. She said, after all the wars are fought, what remains are people, art, nature, and culture. Trump can try, but he cannot cut us out of the picture.
Josh Gad, who looks like this, he says, this picture represents why a healthy budget is so important to the filmmaking process. Is that James Corden?
Josh Gad, he's from Book of Mormon.
James Corden did this funny thing where they dressed as Beauty and the Beast, and they went across the crosswalk in a busy street, and every time the light changed, they went and did a mini play. But I digress.
Oh, that's funny.
That was with the cat. It's hysterical. But I just said the National Endowment of the Arts. It's got great merit, but you got to make some choices. But ultimately, by August, we're going to make the big tough decisions, and that's going to be looking at entitlement reform. And I think the White House.
They are?
Yeah, that's what they.
Entitlement reform.
That's what they're going to start looking at entitlement.
Because the president has said they're not going to touch those things.
Which is insane. How can you possibly get out of $21 trillion in debt and not talk about the automatic payments out of the budget? The big complaint from Capitol Hill is usually Mick Mulvaney will go down, the Office of Management and Budget will go down and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. What do you think? and not saying they have to make changes. They didn't feel like they were dealt in on it. They felt like they were surprised by it.
Well, because what he did was, and he explained it yesterday at the White House, is he went through everything the president said out on the stump when he was running, and he said, okay, he says he's going to do this, I'm going to write it down. He put it all into a document, and that is the skinny budget. What do you think about it? Email us, friends@foxnews.com.
All right, let's talk about Rachel Maddow, because everyone else is. She decides, even though she knows that Donald Trump paid a lot of taxes and made a lot of money in 2005, to go ahead and have this big cliffhanger of a show. When it turns out these 3 pages of Donald Trump's tax returns somehow got in the mailbox of a professor who's out to spend the last 20 years going out to get Donald Trump, it turns out that she and her employer could be in trouble if the White House decides to take legal action.
Well, and they could have a case here. It depends on if you're not allowed to print someone's or release someone's tax information without getting their permission. So is it illegal for her to do this?
Well,
she's saying no.
Trump's personal attorneys believe that MSNBC and the private journalists violated federal privacy laws, and Trump is angry because he feels it's stolen, and it should not have. They should not have aired it. You know, a lot of people feel the First Amendment is on the right, it's on the side of the journalists, and they cite the Pentagon Papers. But the Pentagon Papers was a big study about what was going on in Vietnam. It was not somebody's personal document. So if they go forward, and Trump certainly seems to be angry about it, maybe they'll look at it that way. But nonetheless, you know, you would think that the journalists would be shielded, but then again, where did this thing come from? Was it leaked from somebody inside? The suggestion is if Rachel Maddow herself stole it, or if that investigative reporter stole it,
he says it just popped up in his inbox.
How handy.
And as a journalist, you don't have to release your sources.
Right.
You don't, although some people have gone to jail.
I wonder if Trump hurt his case by releasing prior to their releasing. So they tried to trump Maddow by releasing his tax returns early. I wonder if he hurt his case there by doing that.
Well, he didn't release this one, though. But they talked about how, you know, how desperate an outfit is to put on stolen documents. So,
all right. Meanwhile, Julian Turner's been enlisted for some double duty.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, do you have any headlines for us, by any chance?
Not much, but I'll give it a whirl.
All right,
That's what we got going. We're going actually straight to a Fox News alert breaking right now. A horrifying scheme described as catastrophic after a house explodes in the middle of the night. This home in Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C., scattered into 1 million pieces. You're looking live as firefighters comb through the debris. The homeowner is still unaccounted for. Several houses nearby were also damaged, and it's unclear at this time what caused the blast. And another alert, this one out of Raleigh, North Carolina, where a massive inferno is lighting up the skies. You can see giant flames right there pouring out of windows at an empty apartment complex that's under construction. People forced from their homes as flames spread to nearby buildings as well.
Well, rain's falling.
The raging inferno destroying everything in its path. Neighbors reporting the traces of debris up to a mile away from the homes. In brand new video just in overnight, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is meeting with the Prime Minister of South Korea. It's the second stop on his first trip to Asia.
The policy of strategic patience has ended. All options are on the table. North Korea must understand that the only path to a secure, economically prosperous future is to abandon its development of nuclear weapons.
Tillerson also visiting the tense demilitarized zone separating North and South Korea. He'll head to China, his last stop on the trip, tomorrow.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you.
All right, straight ahead. Incredible video. A woman buried under the rubble after a devastating flood. We're going to show you what happens next.
But first, more missing portraits of the president, this time at a VA hospital in Minnesota. Our next guest saw our reporting yesterday and decided to do something about it. That Marine Corps vet joins us live, coming up next. All week long, we've been telling you about the bureaucratic battle to display the portraits of President Trump and the VA secretary at a VA hospital in West Palm Beach, Florida. There's Brian Mast, the congressman, took some pictures up, put them up, and then the VA took them down. Well, now the White House is issuing new guidance to make sure that pictures are put up at all VA facilities across the country after our story. Same thing happened, though, in St. Cloud, Minnesota. That is where Marine Corps vet Joseph Jones goes to get care. He joins us right now live from Minneapolis. Good morning to you, Joseph.
Good morning.
Okay, so in February, when you went in to see one of your regular doctors, you were excited about President Trump. You were looking for his picture. What'd you see?
Well, when I walked in the door, there was where the previous picture of Barack Obama was. There was just a blank wall.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of surprised. And I walked up to the information desk and I asked them. I said, "Well, what's going on?" I said, "Where's the picture of the commander-in-chief?" You know, and the guy kind of leans over to me like it was a secret or something. He said, "Well," he says, "they're telling us that it was a typo." And I was like, "What?" You know, and so, you know, then after seeing my doctor and doing all that stuff, and I went back home, you know, then I started making calls trying to find out, you know, what the heck is going on, why there's no picture of the commander-in-chief on the wall.
Absolutely. And then this week, I believe you had an appointment and you went in, still no picture. You asked somebody what was up. What did they say?
Right. It kind of on the same line. I walked in there and looked over and anticipating that now the picture should be up. It's been a few weeks later. Like when I called the Department of Veterans Affairs, they told me, well, you just have to give it some time.
Right.
You know, it takes a while for them to get there. And I, you know, went up to the guy and asked him. I said, well, what's going on? I said, you know, where's the picture of the president? And, you know, the guy just told me, he said, you know, that they're planning on impeaching him, so they didn't want to spend any money on the photo.
Whoa, whoa,
I was like,
whoa!
What? And I said,
"This is somebody
who
works at the VA. Said they're planning on impeaching the president, so we're not going to, you know, blow up a picture and put it on the wall." That's what the VA guy told you.
Right. And I said, "That's your answer?" And he said, "Yep," and turned around and walked away.
Oh my goodness. That is just crazy. And then we had Ed Henry's reportage where he said some people down in West Palm Beach said he's not my president. We're not going to put him up, according to Brian Mast, the congressman down there. Joseph, what does this say to you about the reluctance of the VA to put up the picture?
You know, I mean, I got to say that the people that are in the VA, the doctors and the nurses and all
They're
that,
great.
I mean, they are the most wonderful people that I've ever met. I mean, it's like
but
you
the
walk
people
into a
in charge
different
of putting
world
up the
when you go
picture,
there, but,
what about them?
You know, I figured, well, this has got to be something that's political, you know. And I mean, when I called and I started talking to them and stuff, and they were telling me that, well, it just takes time and all this. And I said, well, you knew who the president was going to be November 8th. I said, there's no reason why you shouldn't have had a picture prepared, you know, so that when one comes down, the other goes up. Said, that's how it was when I was in the service.
And Joseph,
that's how it was done.
The good news is the VA has said that going forward, they will put up unofficial photos until the official photo comes out. Good news to you and everybody else. Joseph Jones, thank you very much for your service, sir, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
You bet. More in a minute.
Some headlines now. Terrifying video showing a news crew cheating death by a split second as an ISIS suicide blast goes off. Watch.
What?
Wow. Sniper fire first going off as the crews from Sky News takes off running, hiding inside a dark van on the front lines in Mosul. The explosion happening seconds after. No one was hurt. A more horrifying video, this one of the moment a BBC crew barely escapes an erupting volcano. It's so much better being a studio anchor. 8 people, including several tourists, racing down Mount Etna in Italy, trying to outrun the flying lava. It is tough. Lava's quick. Amazingly, no one was seriously hurt. Ainsley.
Thank you, Brian. It has become a pattern all across the country. Students protesting the president, and they're shutting down conservative speakers. Watch. So why are these students flipping out and demanding rights that they already have? Here to weigh in on this is Allie Stuckey. She's a blogger at the Conservative Millennial. Good morning to you, Allie. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Ainsley. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So why are college students flipping out like we see in some of those video pieces?
Oh, my goodness. Well, there's lots of reasons for that. I think one reason is that college students are very emboldened by this idea of moral vigilantism. Right now, liberal millennials especially feel like they're on the right side of history, that they're defeating fascism, that they're standing up against this evil dictator. They don't see their riots and their protesting as division or as chaos or as vitriol or even as violence. They see it as doing the right thing. And I think that's honestly what makes it a little bit frightening, and that's why it's a little bit difficult to reason with them logically.
Why do they feel, Allie, entitled? Where does this come from? Who's responsible?
I think they feel entitled mostly because the past 8 years they've been able to get the things that they want. Then we had a candidate, Bernie Sanders, that said you deserve all of these things like free college. And then you have someone coming in, someone that they didn't vote for, someone who supposedly stands for things like bigotry and racism, all the things that millennials say that they stand against. And they feel entitled to speak up for this. Of course, we see the hypocrisy in this, that they're standing up for tolerance, they're standing up for love trumps hate, they're standing up apparently for freedom, but they're also using intolerance to shut down the freedom of other people's speech. And I think that's the scary duplicitousness.
Right. They want tolerance until they realize that you don't agree with them. So what is your message to them when they do call President Trump, when they say he's racist and they say that he doesn't understand them? What do you say to them?
I say, where are your facts? What are the actual policies that he has implemented or that he's planning to implement that you actually think are racist or unconstitutional? So much of what Donald Trump has done is well within his realm of discretion, his realm of authority, as is stated by the Constitution. And if they can come to me with actual facts of why Donald Trump is stepping outside of his bounds, that's one conversation. But just to re-quote sensationalized headlines that Donald Trump is enacting some Muslim ban because he doesn't like Muslim people, that's not good enough to me. There's not enough substance behind that.
Yeah, real quickly, shouldn't we expect this though, Allie? I mean, most college students are liberal. They've just gotten out of their parents' house. They haven't made that first paycheck yet. That's when usually they change as they get older and they start paying taxes. They realize they're paying a lot to the government. But shouldn't we expect this at this age?
Yeah, probably a little bit. I think it's worse than it was 8 years ago, even a few years ago. I mean, I was in college in 2012. There was an election then. I remember being disappointed that Barack Obama won. I don't remember rioting. I don't remember protesting. I don't remember calling people who voted for Barack Obama a bigot or any other name like that. But I do think that there's also a shift in indoctrination of college professors. So I think rather than teaching students critical thinking skills and saying, okay, here's what the Constitution says, here's what the travel ban actually says, you can go and read it online, what do you think? They're saying, this is how you have to think, and if you don't think this way, you're going to be punished one way or another. And so I think that we see a lot of college-age millennials, that conservatism that you were talking about once you get the paycheck is deferred longer and longer, and it will be interesting to see what these college-age millennials will actually end up being like in a few years.
Allie Beth Stuckey, thanks for joining us. Goes by the Conservative Millennial if you want to find her on Instagram. Thanks so much. All right, tear down that cross. The PC police back this time going after a tribute to our veterans and a special tribute to all the snowflakes out there.
I've got friends in safe spaces. If you don't go with us, then you must be racist.
What'd you like her, Gavin?
Where's my... It's that one day when everybody in New York is Irish because it's St. Patrick's Day. And today, as we listen to the New York Metro Pipe Band, just one big block over from where we're on 6th Avenue, they have been working through the night on 5th Avenue because that's the site of the biggest St. Patrick's Day parade in the world.
Kicks off at 11 o'clock this morning, and they've been furiously trying to clean up from, I think, 44th Street up to 79th Street, because a couple of days ago we wound up with almost a foot of snow.
But by the way, can someone shovel? I don't know if Shepard Smith is up, but we need somebody to shovel in front of the building. You basically need a dog sled to get
better.
Okay, so for everyone who lives in New York, yesterday, traffic was the worst I have ever seen it. It's because they pushed all the snow to the side.
Yep.
So there's only one lane open on most roads. People were trying to get in and out of traffic.
Terrible.
All of my friends took them hours to get from downtown up to the Upper East Side. So I was glad that the snowstorm was we didn't get it this weekend, because a lot of people are coming up for the St. Patrick's Day parade. But they got to fix this. Can they just throw some hot water on the snow?
Well, here's what they do for snow removal in New York City. They take the garbage truck that normally picks up your garbage, and they put a blade on the front of it. So it scoots it over to the side, but then what do you do with the snow on the side? They have to pick it up with all sorts of scoops and stuff like that, put it into a big truck, and then take it out to the river, where they dump it in the river and let it melt.
Right. I'll say this. Just on St. Patrick's Day, it's going to be going up Fifth Avenue, right? The first St. Patrick's Day parade was?
I don't know. When?
In Boston, right in around the 1700s. In Boston, not even in Ireland. Do you believe that?
The event here in New York City is bigger than anything they've got in Ireland.
All right,
it sounds like you're bragging.
We're gonna have a trivia contest coming up so that we can test your knowledge of St. Patrick's Day. It is March 17th, and Jillian has some more headlines for us. Good morning.
I do. Good morning, guys. It's nice to see everyone agree. So we've got some breaking news this morning. Incredible video just in of devastating mudslides happening in Peru. A woman caught in the danger. You can see the woman trying to claw her way out of the muddy debris. She was eventually rescued and is thankfully okay. The terrifying scene unfolding after 3 days of solid rain. The extreme weather expected for more than 2 more weeks. And breaking overnight, a cop killer may be off the streets thanks to bombshell new evidence. Raymond Durham, a violent and well-known offender, is accused of ambushing 2 police officers in Detroit Wednesday night. Authorities now say his DNA at the crime scene is linked to the murder of Wayne State University officer Sergeant Colin Rose. He was killed execution-style last November, if you remember that. And faith is coming under fire at a memorial dedicated to our nation's veterans. An atheist group now sparking outrage, demanding a wooden cross be taken out of a city hall building near Orlando, Florida. But the mayor of Longwood is firing back, saying it's staying right where it is.
It's a historical honor that was bestowed upon those folks, and so we believe it has every right to be in City Hall.
The cross is part of a Vietnam memorial donated to the city. And liberal snowflakes hiding in safe spaces now have their own country song.
I've got friends in safe spaces. If you don't go with us, then you must be racist.
2 comedian country stars taking a stance for conservatives in America with a tribute to snowflakes everywhere with this song called Friends in Safe Spaces, a political spin you might recognize on Garth Brooks' famous song Friends in Low Places. So far, they've racked in over 100,000 views. And those are your headlines on this frosty morning.
Thank you very much, Jillian. We're outside our world headquarters where, as you can see, Tullamore
with the Metro Pipe Band.
Look at this guy. A fake pub for St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
And it's delightful.
But you guys are real, right? Yeah, absolutely. They're right there drunk.
There's a story that is blowing up social media because everyone loves to talk about that 5-second rule. You know, you drop food on the floor, you have 5 seconds to pick it up and eat it, and there's no bacteria on it, allegedly.
Yeah, supposedly. Aston University does this study, and they want to find out, is it really healthy? The only way to do it is if something drops on the ground, is it still okay to pick it up and eat it? Or is it a 30-minute rule? The answer is, depends on what you drop.
That's right. If you drop, let's say, a sheet of lasagna pasta.
That's cooked.
That's cooked.
Sticky.
It's slimy and it's soft and it's going to absorb more bacteria.
Probably don't eat that.
But if you use a hard food and they suggest like a bagel, something like that, there's a
biscuits,
possibility.
cookies, chocolate.
You could actually put this could fall on the floor and it would be safe from bacteria a half an hour later.
30 minutes.
Half an hour.
Right, because it's rigid. However, if it's butter and you put it face forward, you got 5 seconds because ants and bacteria, bugs will run to it.
Yes. They say if it's dry, 30 minutes. if it has butter on it and it falls face down, do not eat that.
But this is dry, so because you are all our guests here today, we're not going to ask you. Anybody on the crew want to actually test this?
I think Brian should.
Have a 5-second rule?
We know Brian's not going to do it.
There's a guy over here who's suggesting he would do it.
You'll do
we
it?
can't do that probably for liability reasons. It would have to be one of us.
All right, for one thing, we have to tell you, if you're out there saying, well, if something hits the floor, I don't need it, you're lying. Because according to this study, 87% of human beings have eaten something after it hit the floor.
Here's what we're going to do. Because the floor here, even though it looks dry, it's extremely slippery. So this bar, which we have no idea where it came from, let's go ahead and drop it here. Because the surface has got to be dry.
I think you should put it on the floor.
It's wet.
I know, but
I'll eat this one. Ainsley? Ainsley's going to eat that.
I don't like hair.
Guys, show of hands. Have you eaten something that hit the floor?
Of course.
Of course you have.
In half an hour?
Hold on. Raise your hand. Would you eat wet pasta that hits the floor and stays there for 5 seconds? Would you eat that? Anyone?
No, absolutely.
That attracts bacteria and hair and dirt.
We're coming out in a half hour. We're going to eat both these things. We're going to find out if we get some type of
It's right there. Mine's right here.
I'm eating this one.
And to wash it down,
you wanted it on the floor.
And to wash it down, we have a little of Tullamore Dew, single malt. Is that what you prefer?
That's what I prefer. Thanks for getting that for me.
At my house, they call it Daddy's medicine.
Whiskey.
All right. Hey, guys, you want to do another number?
Yeah.
Just hit it. 1, 2.
You see what we're doing with our military. Bigger, better, stronger than ever before. You see what's happening? And you're already seeing the results. Our budget calls for one of the single largest increases in defense spending history in this country.
That was President Trump proudly touting his plans in Nashville to boost military spending, and his plans to rebuild the military also getting praise from a person on Hillary Clinton's VP shortlist, Admiral James Stavridis, who actually went to Trump Tower when he was president-elect, former Supreme Allied Commander for NATO and co-author of this new book, The Leader's Bookshelf. Admiral James Stavridis joins us right now. Admiral, that must have been music to your ears over in Nashville, pun intended, but is it enough for you?
I think we're going to have that as a minimum, a floor, if you will, and we've got to spend it in the right way, Brian. We've got to put that money against, first and foremost, readiness, repairing our ships, restoring the capability that has been somewhat degraded over the last decade in these wars. And then secondly, we need to do the 21st century purchasing of unmanned vehicles, cyber security, something we all understand, and special forces.
$54 billion. They say it's only 3% more than President Obama was going to spend, a 10% increase of the $605 billion. Admiral, you saw it from the outside as Supreme Allied Commander, from the inside as you grew up through the military. Don't we need an efficiency expert? Don't we need to pay attention to what that commission put out, that the Pentagon is wasting billions of dollars?
You know, what you're talking about, Brian, is a report put out by the Defense Business Board that came up with tens of billions of dollars of real savings that could be made, if you will, in the back office. This hit right at the end of the last administration, never got traction. It's something I would recommend to my good friend, Secretary Jim Mattis, take a look at.
All right, let's talk about what's happening today. Angela Merkel, of the Chancellor of Germany, meeting with President Trump, at which time she has pledged to go up in her defense spending from 1.3 to 2% of the defense budget. Yep. Is this the first president that's truly got the attention of our NATO allies when it comes to spending like we're spending?
I think it's fair to say that every previous president has banged on the Europeans to get to that 2% level. This is the first time that we've seen in the last 20 years when they're reaching up for it. That's a good thing. You know, when I think about the list of books in the Leader's Bookshelf, one of them is Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I think that Angela Merkel and Donald Trump are not going to agree on all the issues. They are rivals in a certain sense with a different view of the world. But this is an example of how they can come together and work together. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. And the big topic that will come up, as you know, he has said some things about Angela Merkel ruined Germany by letting million refugees come in who are basically unscreened. We see the problems that they're having over in Belgium, see the problems they're having over in France. And then we see another problem called Russia. How do you hope the president and Angela Merkel, what do you think could emerge that would make you, Admiral, hopeful for to hold off Russia in the region?
I think we need two things. We're going to need to continue to keep the sanctions on Russia in response to their behavior in Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea. And I think the two of them, Merkel and Trump, can do that and ultimately push toward an agreement that will sort out the southeast portion of the country, the so-called Donbass region. The second thing the two leaders can do is focus on cybersecurity and pressure Russia to step back from its continuing cyber attacks into the United States. We just saw the most recent against Yahoo. Goes back to our election. Those are two issues I'd like to see our two leaders tackle together.
The name of the book is The Leader's Bookshelf. Admiral James Stavridis coming to us from Tufts at the Fletcher School. Thanks so much for joining us, Admiral.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
All right, coming up straight ahead, the White House going on the offense to defend the president's budget.
You're only focusing on half of the equation, right? You're focusing on recipients of the money. We're trying to focus on both the recipients of the money and the folks who give us the money in the first place.
Is the media on the same page as the American people? We're going to report. You're going to decide. You saw that battle right there. And Facebook putting the cuffs on the cops. Kurt, the cyber guy, here to explain.
Facebook is refusing to allow police departments to use its data to monitor protesters and activists.
But should security trump privacy? Let's talk to Kurt, the cyber guy, who joins us right now. Where's this coming from?
It's a tightrope, isn't it? I mean, there's this balance, and especially Silicon Valley and big companies, social media especially, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook coming out saying, hey, whoa, wait a minute, to all their third-party partners that use the data from Facebook, saying, hey, don't use that for law enforcement unless we say so. So they're pulling the reins back in there, and they just can't win on this one. They're never going to win, and the reason is this. You know how you have a guest come over to your house, and you're fine with them staying with you. You love them being there. But when they invite another guest over, you don't like that at all. And that's how Facebook's feeling this morning. However, they will not win, because if you're protecting the privacy of your users, you're also then not being very patriotic. You're not looking after the security of America. And if you then start to participate and give out a lot of private information without its users knowing, well, then Facebook loses with users, and the loyalty's not there anymore. People will just bail on it.
Sure. What happened in the past where Facebook is now taking the stand?
Here's what happened. So there's an overall trend that's happened in Silicon Valley with all the companies that we use on a regular basis for our email, for social media, for search. And what happened is, a long time ago, there was a quiet understanding that it was the right and patriotic thing to do was to help out mainly our national government to protect our country from the evils of the outside, mainly.
Absolutely.
Well, that seems all good and well until organizations came about and started to reveal that, including WikiLeaks. So that happened, and people went, wait a minute, you're doing what?
I had no idea that Twitter
was
sharing all that information.
And at the same time now, while it may already be in the fine print of everything that we use, none of us read it, so we act very shocked. So what happens is people backlash against Silicon Valley companies, and up comes a new startup, and they steal the audience
What
away.
are they afraid of? They don't want to be involved in an investigation?
They don't
What's the
want
worst
you
case
and I to
scenario?
stop using them.
Got it.
That is the #1 concern, as it comes down to the wallet. It's always about the money.
And what stands out is that San Bernardino couple that gunned down those innocent people at a Christmas party. So we need to open up that phone, and basically Apple said no.
Well, Apple was a different argument, but that has to do with Apple has built a system by which they cannot be asked the question.
Right.
They can't see into your broom closet to reveal what's in there.
But it's the same thing as companies don't want to release their information about their customers.
Even if it helps fight the war on terror.
True. And at the end of the day, everyone's right and everyone's wrong. Nobody wins on this one because, A, we don't get the information we need to protect the country. We don't get the bad guys if it's something domestic. And at the same time, you and I and everybody else go, wait a minute, what information do I have with you? What are you doing with it?
If a jurisdiction gets a court order and serves it to Facebook, it says
you must.
You got to open it up.
They
must. Will.
They will, of course. They're compliant with that. They have whole departments for that. But what this is all about now is just another reminder that there is this just dichotomy going on.
#1 story.
There's no win with data, and they're simply caught in the middle of it all.
Right. You know what? I just want to get out of the technology age. I'd like to go back.
You want a rotary dial phone?
Yeah,
what
I
era
wanna
would
go
you go back to?
Yeah, you want your Trapper Keeper, your rotary dial phone, the horse.
I like Petticoat Junction when you have to walk up the telephone pole just to answer the phone.
That's how
Green
it's
Acres.
right.
That was Green Acres?
That was Green Acres.
Was it?
Yeah. Petticoat Junction, everybody was always swimming up in the water tower.
Well, that's right.
Oh, yeah. That's not sanitary.
Yeah.
Right.
You think, talk about the bagel out on the wet street.
Right. That's the age you want to go back
We're
to.
going to eat it in about 5 minutes.
Thanks, Kurt.
Coming up on this Friday telecast, Geraldo, Ed Henry, and Judge Janine. As you can hear, it's St. Patrick's Day live from New York City.
Hey, Steve, can we see that wet bagel out on the street?
I think it's...
Or on the bar?
Maybe on the bar.
Steve put his on the bar, mine's on the floor.